Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Spanish Football Podcast. I'm Phil Kitromilides. I'm joined by Sid Lowe. We have had some technical issues with Sydney's mic before coming on, which is why Sid looks particularly unimpressed ahead of today's podcast. It's also Monday morning, which means it's the busiest time of the week. Sydney is looking at me with a look which basically says, let's bloody get on with this. I've got loads to write.
I'm looking at this microphone and thinking, they're going out the window. That's what I'm thinking.
It wouldn't be the first piece of technological equipment which has frustrated you, which has gone literally flying out of your office window.
It probably wouldn't, no.
No, I think there was a poor old printer which felt your wrath.
Oh, that didn't go out the window. That just got kicked.
No, that got kicked.
Yeah, it didn't go out the window.
Repeatedly abusing the printer.
And I kept it, even after it was broken, because it was quite useful to have something there to kick.
Good.
I kept it in a box so that like the pieces could fly around without flying around the office. And I kept it in a box, and when I wanted to, I could kick it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, tremendous, eh?
Good.
Anyway.
Good. Well, that's how we're starting today, Monday morning, talking about kicking things inside a box. This is what happened on Matchday 18. Talking about kicking things inside a box, neither Rayo nor Getafe are very good at that.
Very good. Seamless.
They played on Friday night. It finished 1-1 at Vallecas. An absolutely terrible game of professional football, just stunningly low quality. The surprise is that both teams managed to score. Getafe did it in the 91st minute in rather painful fashion for Rayo. Finished 1-1. And then on Saturday, Celta Vigo inflicted a really damaging defeat on Valencia. 4-1 it finished at Balaidos. Valencia missing an early penalty. They're in the relegation zone now, Valencia, and in all sorts of trouble. Osasuna and Athletic Club played out a Basque-ish derby at El Sadar. It finished 1-1. Villarreal became the first team to win away to Elche this season, 3-1. They were successful at the Martínez Valero. Sydney was there to witness the game. And Barcelona won the Catalan derby 2-0 at the RCDE Stadium against Espanyol. Espanyol feeling very hard done by, because they played really well in this game and probably deserved to get something out of it. Then on Sunday, a massive win for Levante. Bottom side Levante went to Sevilla and won 3-0. They're not bottom anymore. Real Madrid beat Betis 5-1 at the Bernabeu in a funny old game, a hat-trick from Gonzalo Garcia, seamlessly replacing the injured Kylian Mbappe. Alaves and Oviedo finished 1-1. Should have been 3-0 to Oviedo. They scored. They had plenty of chances to score more. I got so many expletive-ridden messages from Sydney throughout the latter stages of this match. Really should have won. Desperately needed to win because teams at the bottom were winning as well. But they didn't finish 1-1. Girona, one of those teams at the bottom who did win, claimed a 2-1 success at Mallorca. Tsigankov and Vanat, the two Ukrainians, with the goals. And Real Sociedad played out a 1-1 draw with Atletico Madrid. It was the first game in charge for new American coach Pellegrino Matarazzo of La Real. They looked better, played a bit more on the front foot, and probably should have won this game. Atletico Madrid creating absolutely nothing, one shot on target, and yet another disappointing away showing from Atletico Madrid this season. Thank you to everyone who's joined us already at patreon.com/TSFP in 2026. We've had loads of new patrons over the last week, so thank you. They'll be getting the Monday and Friday podcasts without adverts, plus a weekly Q&A pod and a bonus pod as well. And there's the newsletter, the diary, the Discord. You can join us. Sign up from just €4.75 a month, or it's even cheaper if you get an annual membership. That's all at patreon.com/TSFP. So let's get to the Catalan derby then at the RCDE Stadium on Saturday night, Sydney. It finished 2-0 to Barcelona. The goals coming late on, very late on. Dani Olmo in the 86th minute and then Robert Lewandowski in injury time. The build-up to this game was all about Joan Garcia. It genuinely was focused so much on his return to Espanyol, what we're expecting the fans to greet him with, and the hostile reception he was going to get. Espanyol pleading with their fans not to be violent towards him, erecting nets behind the goal so they couldn't chuck things at him. It was all about Joan Garcia. And at full time, Sid, it was still all about Joan Garcia.
Yeah, because his performance was absolutely brilliant. As good a goalkeeping performance as I've seen. I was going to say for a long time, but I think probably Thibaut Courtois has a thing or two to say about that over the last few years, because there's been games where he has single-handedly made not single-handedly, he's tended to use both hands, made so many saves that he's kept Real Madrid in games that they shouldn't be in. I think what was striking about this was I suppose it is the context as well. It's the way that it's built up. It's the fact that Joan Garcia didn't seem at all moved by any of it. Didn't seem at all fazed by the noise, by the things that were thrown at him, which mercifully were not quite as much as they should have been, but still more. So quite as much as we thought they would be, but more than they should have been. The amount of pressure he was under, and he made 6 saves officially. I think it's 7 because I think the one-on-one against Roberto doesn't count as a save because he dives at his feet and pushes it away. No, because it's not a shot. I think statistically that doesn't count as a save. Yeah, I think that's one of the best. My favourite save is the one he doesn't make. It's the one that he makes Gerard Martin make. Yes. Where I mean, for those of our listeners who haven't seen it, there's a save and a rebound, and he realizes he can't get to the rebound in time, so he pushes his centre defender into the ball. He pushes his centre defender over, so his central defender makes the block for him, and then there's a save that he makes from a Pedamia header, which is just extraordinary.
I think that's the best save I've ever seen live. I think
it may well be. I mean, it is phenomenal.
Maybe recency bias, but genuinely, I mean, there's certain saves that stick in your mind, and I genuinely can't think of a better one than that.
It's the speed of the movement. Yeah, there's a little bit of good fortune in the sense that he's in the air and he kind of throws his arms across, and they could end up anywhere. They might not reach the ball, but the reaction time is so fast. The what would you call it? The adaptability in the air, I suppose. The ability to see it and move his arms towards it quick enough. It's just a phenomenal save. There's what I love about that. There are 3 reactions from 3 Espanyol players in that save that tell you so much. So the cross is from Romero, the header is from Pedamia, and just behind Pedamia is Dolan. And so you've got the 3 of them. Now, the first reaction you see is Dolan, who's celebrating the goal already. His arms are up celebrating, and then he realizes that the keeper saved it. Then you see Romero doing that thing, where you wag your hands as if you've just trapped your fingers in a drawer. He's going, whoa! Ooh. And then you get this moment where Pedamia kind of walks up to Joan Garcia at the corner and sort of gives him a little punch in the stomach, like a sort of gentle punch in the stomach, as if to say, bloody hell, man. It's a fantastic save, and he was brilliant throughout the game, which of course...
I mean, it wasn't just the saves, was it? Because
it was everything.
It was so hostile, but he was coming out of his box to pick up those long balls. He was playing
good on crosses.
He always plays good on crosses. It was everything.
Yeah, everything. He's a big goalkeeper without being giant. There's a calmness about everything he does. His use of the ball with his feet is good. His reaction time is fantastic. As you say, there's a kind of an awareness of everything going on around him, that I think makes him look very, very special indeed. He's only 21, which of course is. Sorry, no, he's not. He's 24, isn't he? He's 24, which in goalkeeping terms is pretty young still. Obviously, the debate has started now about the national team. And funny enough, we've actually talked about this on the pod before, so let's not go over it again. But I think what that does tell you is that everyone's looking at him going, wow, this guy is absolutely fantastic. And of course, what that leads us to in terms of an analysis of this game is that, as Hansi Flick rightly put it, we didn't deserve to win this. And I have to say thanks to Joan Garcia. That, for me, is this match in a nutshell, because I thought Espanyol were very, very good indeed.
They were superior to Barcelona. They were
much the better side. Much the better side. Well, match is possibly... Is that a bit unfair? I don't know. I think they were the better side.
It was quite even, but
but they made the better chances, certainly till the end. And the other thing, if we could look at this from an analytical point of view, I think Barcelona... here we go. This is that thing that always makes me feel very uncomfortable, but I'm going to say it. Hansi Flick got it wrong again. I think that insistence of trying, of thinking that he's lacking midfielders and making up for it with an extra forward and playing someone inside. On this occasion, it was Rafinha playing in the inside position, the number 10, Rashford on the wing. Again, it didn't work. No. I mean, they've tried it a few times and it doesn't entirely convince. We saw Lamine play in the middle of it and it worked quite well against Betis. But it wasn't like it was his great performance. It was just like we looked at it and thought, well, this is interesting from a Lamine point of view. You see what I mean? From the point of view of, wow, could this be a place for him? But generally speaking, I think that hasn't worked. And I think the change changed everything. The introduction of Olmo, the introduction of Pedri, the introduction of Lewandowski, I think less so, although he does score the goal. And then obviously, that's the guy I'm coming to. What a player he is. When he's good, he's so good. And he's really brilliant in the 2 goals. And a slightly different type of Barcelona youth team player, and it's not all about technique, although he's got it. It's about the drive, the determination. I suppose you could almost call it, is this a childish word to use? One of the things I like about Fermin is the enthusiasm with which he plays. There's this sort of sense of, I can get to that, I'm going to do
Yeah.
this, and
Yeah.
I really like that. It
Almost
reminds me.
cartoon-like.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me a little bit. It's slightly different because I think he's more aggressive, but it reminds me a little bit of Camavinga. I always talk to you about how I like Camavinga's exuberance, even when he doesn't play well.
Uh-huh.
That sort of willingness to run through and go for things. And with Fermin, it's not quite the same, but there's a touch of that to him as well.
The thing with Fermin is I find that sometimes when he gets in those areas around the box, like the only thing on his mind is shooting.
Yes,
And I think he needs to have a little bit, potentially a bit more power, so a bit more vision, a bit more awareness, which maybe is coming. But yeah, that would be the only thing that I would
I
say.
agree with you.
Yeah.
The weird thing is that and this is very contradictory, but I think that at times that's beneficial. Because I think at times it means he takes things on and makes
Yeah.
things happen that other players
Yeah.
might not. I mean, obviously, I still think in those spaces around the edge of the area, their best player is Danny Olmo.
Olmo.
But of
Yeah.
course, Danny Olmo doesn't have. Well, it's a physical thing, really. Doesn't get continuity
Yeah. Because he's seemingly always injured.
because he gets injured a lot. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, but he scored an absolutely brilliant goal, fantastic goal made by Fermin and dispatched by Olmo in superb fashion. Beautiful first-time strike over Marko Dimitrovic, who didn't have too much to do in this game, the Espanyol goalkeeper, but he did make one extraordinary save from Eric Garcia.
Do you know what? Are we allowed to say it? It's better than all of Joan Garcia's saves. The best save of the game is actually Dimitrovic's.
Do you think so?
No, I know. I know. I'm being deliberately obtuse, but it was an absolutely fantastic save.
Incredible. Yeah. We've seen two of the saves of the season in this game, coming off the back of Jan Oblak in the last game of 2025, Atletico Madrid against Girona. The save he made against Axel Witsel. We thought, oh, that's the save of the season. It's not now. It isn't. But anyway, Barcelona winning this game against a really well organised Espanyol side who had these great chances, who really should have scored, and afterwards, they were clearly disappointed because remember, Espanyol haven't beaten Barcelona since 2009 in the league. They haven't won at home against them since 2007. They've never won a league derby against Barcelona in this stadium where they play. This was their best chance to do so, Sid.
Yes, it was. And it wasn't just the best chance because of how the game played out. It was the best chance because of how they came into the game. In a way, how the game played out wasn't enormously surprising. Espanyol have been absolutely fantastic. I think they came into this, I think it's 6 wins in a row, wasn't it? Coming into this, or maybe five. And there's one of the things that happened, we talked about this a little bit last week, was that last year they shifted at the halfway stage of the season. The results improved, but they were broadly speaking a counter-attacking team. I think they do more now, and I think in this game they were much more front-footed. They were much more determined to go at Barcelona, and in a way, perhaps they partly lost this game because they thought there's a chance they could win it. Because they were continuing to go for Barcelona. I think, in previous years, you get into 82, 83, 84 minutes, 0-0 with Barcelona, and perhaps you close off. And they didn't because they could feel that the weight of the game, the dynamic of the game was in their direction. And then you have that fantastic turn from Fermin, and suddenly they're caught and they're open, and that's it. Admittedly, there's then another goal, but I think by that point the game is broken. I think they use the ball pretty well. They're quite direct. They are quite direct. I'm not going to pretend they're this paragon of possession or anything. They're not.
They've got the lowest possession in La Liga at the moment
in the whole league.
I did not know that.
Right, I didn't know that. Right, so and they are quite direct. They try and get the ball into the wide men pretty quickly. They go quite long to Roberto, who, remember a few weeks ago I described Roberto as being the game in which I'd seen a player do the least, do the most.
Yes,
because he's one of these players that you watch him, and there's such an enormous, I suppose, generosity of effort and so on. And in this game, he had the chances, and he missed them, and he had 2 really, really good chances. And then you could see when he went off, he was absolutely devastated at the chances he missed. But I think he gives them so much, and he's a big part of the reason why they can play the way they are. He was a huge part of why they survived last year, because he came midway through the season and scored lots of goals. But it's also about what he gives everyone else and gives the players around him someone to play from. So it's to him, and then from him to everyone else quite a lot of the time.
There's only one forward in the league, Sid, that does more high-intensity sprints than Roberto Fernandes.
Okay. Is it Hugo Duro? No, because he hasn't played enough minutes.
No.
High-intensity sprints. Go on, who's it?
A vein popping on the side of your head.
Go on, who's it?
Giuliano Simeone.
I wouldn't have called him a forward, right? Okay, I would have
Yeah.
thought of him as a wide midfielder. Okay, yeah. Well, there you go. That's the obvious answer. Yes, absolutely. That is absolutely the obvious.
But apart from him, it's Roberto Fernandez. So
Yeah.
that gives you an idea of just how many of those sort of that repetition of those high intensity sprints that he does game after game, and it was a big performance from him. The only thing missing was a goal. Unfortunate for Espanyol. All right, let's talk about Real Madrid beating Real Betis 5-1 at the Bernabeu with a hat-trick from Gonzalo Garcia. Perfect hat-trick as well. Header, brilliant goal with the right, and a beautiful flick with the left. Memorable performance from him. There were also 5 goals from Canteranos in this game, because he scored 3. Raúl Asensio scored 1, and Fran Garcia scored in injury time as well. This game, I mean, I thought the first half was possibly Real Madrid's best performance for a while. Certainly in the first half of the game, they went 3-0 up. And then Betis sort of got back into it. They made it 3-1. They had a couple of chances to make it 3-2. Roro Riquelme hits the inside of the post with an unbelievable shot. If that goes in, it's 3-2, and things start getting very, very nervy indeed. There were already whistles in the Bernabeu at 3-1, but it didn't. Then they scored a 4th and then a 5th, and then it was all wrapped up pretty comfortably. So not to take anything away from Real Madrid, they played well in this game. It was a positive day for them. But it could have gone a slightly different way, Sid, it felt like, in that second half.
It could. And it was sort of starting to happen at the back end of the first half as well. From about 35 minutes onwards, there was a sort of a sense of the intensity dropping a little bit, a sense that Betis was starting to realise that they could get into the game. Maybe not creating a huge amount, but the territorial sort of possession had shifted a little bit. Then, as you say, they had these chances. They hit the post. Not just the Roro Riquelme one. There's the Lo Celso free kick, which he's not trying to score, but it does go all the way through and hit the post. There's a couple of saves that Courtois has to make. And at this point, you're thinking, wow, Madrid do look a little bit edgy. And obviously the atmosphere and the context doesn't help, because people are starting to whistle or get a little bit irritated. And you think, oof, I think you're right. If Betis make it 3-2, then things change. But they didn't. No. And I do think that it's worth talking about, look, obviously, and let's do, as we've done with the other Garcia, it's the weekend of the Garcias. Let's talk about Gonzalo Garcia in just a second. But I think there was a dynamism about Real Madrid, certainly in that first half an hour, that we haven't seen very often this year. I think in part that is actually about Gonzalo Garcia. But it's about having a centre forward that occupies space in a way that allows the 2 wide men to get out and really go at people. There was a sense, me and Al were watching this game together, there was a sense I think both of us had very, very early on of Vinicius being on one. Admittedly, his game then drifted a little bit. But for the first 15 minutes, very much so, más o menos. The first 15 minutes, there's a real sense of being him on one. And poor old Ortiz, who was starting, I think, only his 3rd game for Betis. Yeah. And you're sitting there thinking, why did they play him today?
I messaged you that, didn't I? I
like, what's going on? Where is Bellerin? And Bellerin was out warming up as soon as the halftime whistle went. And I think there was an awareness that Ortiz was having a difficult time and had potentially given away a penalty and had got a yellow card. And you think, just stop it. I actually thought both fullbacks were a slight surprise in their starting lineup. Rodriguez on the other side, and both of them I thought had really poor games. Both the starting fullbacks I thought had really poor games. But Madrid were very, very good. There was, as I say, a dynamism about them, which they managed to recover a little bit in the second half. And Gonzalo Garcia was fantastic. Really, genuinely fantastic. And, the 3 goals, obviously, the first one is, I suppose, a classic. Do you know what? The first one reminds me a little bit of one of the things that I always felt that Cristiano Ronaldo did really well. Ooh. Cristiano Ronaldo was brilliant at disappearing. But let me explain what I mean by that he'd be there in the area with a defender alongside him. And the defender thinks he's there. And then Ronaldo is 3 or 4 yards behind him. And he doesn't seem to have moved. Sometimes it's just because he stopped and he's allowed the defender to drift slightly towards the ball, and he's just ever so slightly drifted away from it. Yeah. And it's, I don't want to overplay it, because really and truly, it's a fairly simple, badly defended far post header, nodded back across goal into the far corner from about 2 yards, right? So I don't want to overplay it, but I think that little bit of movement just to step away from the defender and have a couple of yards to finish it. The second goal is a brilliant volley. Again, the two, I have no idea.
Control and volley, yeah.
Yeah, so it's on the chest and then taking the volley, struck so cleanly. There's a lovely angle of it, a replay of it from behind him. And you see the cleanness of the strike. It's pretty much perfect. You know, it really is pretty much perfect.
I mean, it's generally the goal that you score in your dreams when you're dreaming about scoring a goal.
Exactly.
Like
the
that.
only difference, I suppose, is you probably dream that it flies into the top corner rather than the bottom because it's a little bit more comic book then. But, you know, it's absolutely brilliant. And again, though, by the way, I don't know where the two central defenders are. I mean, they've abdicated, the pair of them. It's bizarre, but it's that's a ridiculous thing for me to say, and I apologize. I'm going to rewind it now and say, because how can I even begin to look for a problem of a goal this good? It's a fabulous goal, and then the third is really good as well. And you know what, the third isn't just good because it's a nice little back heel. It's the movement again, and there's a nice angle of it where you see him, and it's Nathan, isn't it, the defender, I think, that's with him. And he and Nathan go towards the ball, then go away from the ball, and then he goes towards the ball again, and Nathan goes away from the ball. It's like they split. And in the space of 3 strides, maybe not even that, he manages to gain himself about 8 meters. It looks like, and it's about the movement. It's about learning how to get away from the defender, and Nathan falls for it entirely. He literally goes the wrong way, and so it's about the movement and the finish. But for me, it's about the press. It's about how well he brings the ball down and brings others into play. It's about how intelligently he plays. It's about how generous he is. We're talking about this with Roberto a minute ago in terms of the effort. That might be a Spanishism. Is it a Spanishism to talk about generosity of effort? It sort of is, isn't it? Yeah, so sorry for that. But I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Like, genuinely a brilliant performance.
The first goal comes from an assist from Rodrigo, who does seem like he has recovered a little bit of form, certainly in terms of numbers. Obviously, scored a couple of times in December, had an assist in the last game of the year, an assist yesterday as well. I guess this was being used as a potential positive for Xabi Alonso, and something to praise Xabi Alonso for, having recovered Rodrigo. And, you know, Gonzalo is also a product of Xabi Alonso's vision, and it was his. God, I mean, he's going to use the Spanishism. His bet. He bet on Gonzalo. Certainly in the Club World Cup, you know, none of us thought that he was going to start, and he did, and he paid him off. And this season, well, he hasn't had too many starts or any really league starts, but here he does. He started and scored a hat-trick. So if we're looking for positives, specifically for Xabi Alonso, who came into this game still under pressure, not the pressure that he was at the end of 2025 because of those 3 successive unconvincing wins that they had, but there were still lots of question marks. And I'm not saying they've all dissipated just because of one big win against Betis at the Bernabeu, but I think, you know, he has been questioned for the work that he's been done. And those specific examples, 2 little examples there with two players, I think we can put that down to Xabi Alonso.
Yeah. So before the game, knowing that Kylian Mbappé is missing, you think, well, who plays up front? Well, there's the obvious choice is Gonzalo Garcia, and in fact, he's the only choice because he's the only number 9. But actually, it wasn't that obvious. I think we all thought there was a possibility that it would be the 2 Brazilians, that maybe Bellingham will be coming through the middle of the 2 of them, that they might not play with a centre forward. But Xabi Alonso did go for that. Now, again, look, this isn't an act of genius by any means. It's a logical thing, but it is about supporting him and backing him. I suppose the question that then becomes, could we have seen a bit more of him this season? I think he came into this on 170 something minutes. Obviously, Endo could play. Well, so this is the thing. Instead of no one in terms of a starting position. But over the last few weeks, we've had this issue with Mbappe's knee. You have games in which you think, could he have come on at difficult points in the game? Could he have had more minutes? I don't think for a minute that any of us would be defending the possibility of him having had very many more starts. You know, a couple of games here or there against teams that you think you're going to win, and maybe you rotate people. But I think maybe some more minutes, you might say. But this is exactly the question here. So now, of course, as always happens in these scenarios, and I actually don't necessarily criticize this, although it's overblown. You know, now of course it's this. Wow, this guy's amazing. He's got to play for Spain. He's going to be a superstar in the future, and those things may well be true, by the way. But of course, this is Real Madrid, and this is what we talk about all the time. You know, the player in front of you is Kylian Mbappé. Yeah. Right? And Gonzalo Garcia has just scored a brilliant hat-trick. But if Real Madrid play tomorrow and everyone's fit, no one puts him in ahead of Kylian Mbappé. No one.
No. Is there a way
there is a question about
play?
whether... Yeah, well, there we go. So then you start talking about occupation of positions and what's the best way of setting the side up and what does this mean? And that's where you get back into that question of Real Madrid having Vinicius and Mbappé occupying similar spaces. Because in part that gets resolved by Mbappé being a centre forward. And by the way, I've been impressed and surprised by how good Mbappe's been through the middle, because I don't think it's where he naturally wants to be.
Play Mbappe on the right.
I don't think he would like that at all.
No, he wouldn't.
I don't
That's what
think he would like that.
my Real Madrid supporting friend Oscar was messaging me. He said, "See, I've been telling you this since August. Gonzalo needs to play." I was like, "No, you haven't, mate." I looked back over our WhatsApp chat
And had he
mentioned no? He's like, "Oh no, maybe I told someone else." But I'm in a group with some other guys, and they're like, Oscar, this is muy ventajista, very opportunistic." And he's like, no, I think, but anyway, you can do it. You play Mbappe on the right. He played there for PSG. Sometimes you play Gonzalo through the middle, Vini on the left. You cargar the area. You put Gonzalo in the box. He chases, he presses. I mean,
I don't think you get the best out of Mbappe like that. I don't think you get the best out of Gonzalo like that. I think you might get the best out of Vinicius out of that. But of those three players, I think only one of them truly benefits.
One out of three is actually quite bad. So
I mean, admittedly, obviously, look, I'm slightly forcing it because Gonzalo Garcia would benefit in that he would be starting, and that's very much a benefit. But I don't think he would benefit most from having an Mbappe to his right.
A 15th consecutive game for Vinicius without scoring. As we said, he went from más to menos in this game, from more to less. Started well, finished a little bit more subduedly, and was whistled against it. And looked really unhappy when he was going off.
He did look very unhappy. I think there's a difference, and I think you've used the right word. This time he looked unhappy. In previous occasions, we've seen him look angry. This didn't look like anger. He just looked
sad.
He just looked sad, and it was actually
tried.
Yeah, he really did look sort of a little bit. Well, very hurt by it.
And this is bad for the club, by the way, because they're in negotiations with him to try and extend his contract. So if he's getting whistled every time he plays at home, this might not feel like. Yeah.
And I was trying to matizar, put the nuance in or the context in when he got whistled last time, because I'd watched the game. When he's taken off and he gets whistled last time against Sevilla, this created this whole storyline of everyone's whistling, or not everyone's, but whistles for Vinicius. And I was sitting in the north stand, not up high where the press are that night, and I thought to myself, I'm not 100% sure they are whistling him. That night, I felt like some of the people around me, at least, were whistling the change itself. In other words, don't take him off. So they whistled when the board went up, and then when he started to walk, applauded, which I thought was a way of saying, and we've seen this lots of times at the Bernabeu. The other thing, of course, for the context here, and me and Al were talking about this watching the game yesterday, is there were lots of whistles during this match at various points. Yeah. And there's a bit of me that thinks it's just kind of what they do. Like it's not always as tremendo as it seems to be, But then yesterday actually changed my mind a little bit from that first time, because yesterday it was concerted whistling of him. Yeah. And I thought that was quite striking on a day in which he didn't do anything wrong. So it's not like it's irritation with him screwing it up. It's not like it's irritation with him missing a chance or being greedy or not tracking back or any of those things. On a day in which I thought his performance, although it did drift away a lot, was okay, it felt a bit more pointed. And I think looking at his face, it felt a bit more personal as well, maybe.
What about Betis? Cucho Hernandez scored, and
brilliant goal.
He's a really good player. I really like him.
He is, yeah. And he gives them something that I think is really important, because he gives them the mobility, that little touch for aggression. The pass to him from Villarreal is fantastic, and he takes it really, really well, because he goes round Courtois, but then doesn't seem to have the chance to score, and he has the peace of mind and the calmness to come back and then finish. I think his movement was really good. I really like Villarreal. I thought this was a poor Betis performance, though. I thought it was poor in the middle of midfield, and I thought it was particularly poor across the back, and surprisingly so. Betis hadn't lost away. That said, their home defeats have been against the three big teams they played: Atletico, and Barcelona. Barcelona put 5 past them. Madrid have now put 5 past them. So, yeah, it suggests that, I guess, is this like what we say about Villarreal? We've talked about Villarreal a bit this year. They beat the teams they should beat, and they just maybe not quite good enough to beat the teams they shouldn't.
Yeah, maybe.
Is that a bit simplistic? It might be, but perhaps there's an element of truth in that.
Tell me about your trip to Elche to see Villarreal win, become the first team to win there this season. What was that game like?
Well, it was Villarreal doing a little bit of what Villarreal do, but I thought slightly differently, actually. Given the nature of these two teams, you felt it was always quite likely that Elche would have possession. Villarreal would, to some extent, at least allow them to come to them and then go really, really quickly into the spaces behind them. This was slightly different in that what Villarreal did was step into Elche and try and cut them off at source. rather than wait for them to come. And Elche looked really, really uncomfortable for once, trying to bring the ball out from the back and losing possession. And Villarreal were winning the ball high and then going straight into not so much the wide positions, the long balls up the line or through the gaps, as the sort of, what would you call them? Those kind of inside left and right positions, those channels between fullback and centre back. And they scored those 2 goals really, really early on. I thought their start was really good. I actually then thought Elche's response was really good. I thought for 25 minutes or so, Elche were really quite good. But then once the second, I think the worst thing that happened for Elche really was the halftime whistle, because they were starting to gather a bit of momentum. And I think that enabled Villarreal to just kind of take a pause and go, okay, now we do shift slightly. Now we do let them come a little bit. We put the block a little bit lower. We don't let them through. And I actually felt that Elche lacked, I don't know if the word is imagination or structure or whatever it was, to find a way through. And so they've lost at home for the first time this season against a very, very good team. A very good team who have been really awful in Europe. And so it's quite hard to reconcile those two things. But Villarreal are a good team.
Awful in Europe and knocked out of the Copa del Rey as well. So
yes,
it's just the league for Villarreal to focus on. They are,
if they win their 2 games in hand, they're level with Real Madrid. That's how good their first start of the season has been.
If they win their 2 games in hand, they are 1 point behind Real
Madrid. 1 point behind Real Madrid. Sorry,
level. Currently on 38 points. Level on points with Atletico Madrid, and their game last night at Real Sociedad was, I thought, another very poor performance from Atleti away from home. They started all right. They had a couple of decent opportunities for Julian Alvarez, and then really faded away. Scored right at the start of the second half with Giuliano Simeone doing a brilliant lung-busting run down the right-hand side and then floating in a lovely ball for Sorloth. There were 2 players completely unmarked at the back post, Sorloth and Baena. Sorloth heads it home, and it's a decent start to the second half for Atleti, but then Real Sociedad score and look like scoring again. I think they had 7 shots on target. Atleti only had 1. It was poor. And I just want to focus, as we get to the last few minutes of the podcast, focus on Julian Alvarez, Sid, because genuinely the 2 chances that he had, they're not sitters, but for him, the way that he took them, I was actually concerned with the way that he took them, because it was way off what a player of his qualities should be doing. And his general performance was tired. It wasn't involved at all. I think he was taken off midway through the second half, with Atletico needing a goal. He hasn't scored since the 1st of November. He hasn't scored away from home since August in the league. It's a poor run, a really worrying poor run of form from Julian.
Yeah, and I think you're right to point out that in this game, one of the things that was striking about him was the flatness of his performance.
Yeah, really flat.
So it's not just the goals, and we've been talking about this for a long time now. For well over 6 weeks, I would say, talking about there's a problem with Julian Alvarez. Before, it was saying that there's something that's not quite right with the fit. But one of the things that you certainly thought whenever you watched him play, and this was very, very noticeable to me, the games that I've watched from pitch side, when you see him up close, is how dynamic he is, how mobile he is. He gets around, he gets involved with people, he drops back, he plays from a number 10 position if he's got a forward ahead of him, from a number 9 position if he hasn't, and then he's playing off the people behind him. And the mobility is what makes him a really good player. And in this game, that mobility wasn't there.
No.
And you just thought that this is a guy that, I don't want to play, well, should we play amateur psychologist? It felt like kind of emotionally it wasn't right. It felt like emotionally he wasn't sort of tuned in to what was going on around him, or maybe that physically he's not in good shape. But this was not just him not scoring, this was a really, really poor performance. The whole team wasn't good, but I thought it was particularly alarming how bad he was.
No, I agree. I think that was the standout from this game for Atletico Madrid, and Real Sociedad with their new American coach Pellegrino Materazzo creating problems for Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, a bit more front-footed, weren't they? No, it wasn't. But they were a bit more aggressive. I think they there was a bit more intent about them in this game, I felt.
Yes. All right, there we go. That's what's happened in Matchday 18 in La Liga EA Sports. Before we go in the Segunda, Racing Santander are top of the table on 38 points. They drew 1-1 at Valladolid. Las Palmas are second on 37 points. They beat Zaragoza 2-1. Then it's Almeria on 35 points and Castellón on 34. And check out the lovely goals scored by Roberto Lopez for Leganés at Albacete. Worth a couple of minutes of your time there. We'll be back tomorrow with the Q&A pod. I say that It's Reyes tomorrow, which is kind of like Christmas Day here. But I guess we can make time for a Q&A pod for our patrons at patreon.com/TSFP. There'll be a bonus pod later on in the week as well. And we'll be back for the Friday preview coming up this Friday. Oh, there is the Spanish Super Cup as well this week, which takes place in Saudi Arabia again. So we'll be talking about that, I'm sure, at some point. Sid, you've got to go and write. What are you writing about today?
Well, fairly obviously, Joan Garcia.
Ah, brilliant. Okay, look forward to reading that on the pages of The Guardian. Adios, amigos. Thanks for the support, and we'll speak soon.
Cheerio.